Hi, in this video I want to share my testimony concerning how I became a Christian. This might end up being more than one part, so bear with me. First, let me just say that I wasn't raised with a very strong Christian foundation. My parents took me to church. I was actually pretty involved in church activities, but I was biblically illiterate. I really didn't understand the cross. I didn't know anything about Bible prophecy. I'd never read the Bible. And my parents had very unorthodox views on God. They kind of believed in a God that, this mysterious God that wasn't necessarily a transcendent God. They told me at one point that they believed that we're all God, that God is in all of us, and together we're all God. So they had a really strange view of God, and that's how I was raised. Now, I became very skeptical of the idea of there being any sort of transcendent God at a fairly early age, and by the time I was a teenager, I'd become a hard atheist, in the sense that I was completely convinced that there was no logical possibility of there being a transcendent God. I believed there was no God. I didn't doubt that there was a God. I believed firmly that there was no God. There could not be a God. So I held firmly to that belief for a few years. Now, when I was 21, right before I turned 22, I got knocked up. I became pregnant with my daughter, Autumn. And at the time, her father and I were not married. We were dating. We were living together in Conway, Arkansas, where I'd attended college. So when we found out that I was pregnant, we moved back to our hometown, Texarkana. And he moved in with his father, and I moved back in with my parents because we were totally broke, didn't have any place to live. So he started working, and I was just being pregnant, So he would call me on the phone. I'd try to convince him to come over every night, but a lot of times we'd just talk over the phone. And he was raised in a Baptist household. He wasn't ever really a strong Christian, but he kind of always believed in God. But I guess at some point during this period, first few months of my pregnancy, he had come to the realization that Christianity was the truth. So one night, and he knew that I was a hard atheist. So one night he called me on the phone, and I just remember sitting there talking to him. And let me first say that I really didn't think that I hated Christianity, and I certainly didn't think that I hated Jesus. That never, I just didn't really think too much about Jesus at all. So we were talking, and he started talking about Jesus. And I started to become very uncomfortable when he began to talk about Jesus. And I guess, thought, well, I hope he shuts up pretty soon. And then he said, Georgia, you need Jesus. And at that moment, I just felt this intense hatred welling up inside me. And at that point, I really hated him. Truth was, I guess I really hated Jesus, subconsciously, but I thought that I just hated my fiance. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not going to marry him if he's going to be a Christian. And don't really remember what I said to him, but I know it was rude, and I ended that conversation abruptly. So after that, I just kind of tried to push it out of my mind. And this was when I was about 6 months pregnant. And Dustin, my husband, and I were engaged to be married. We ended up getting married when I was 7 months pregnant. But in the month before that happened, I would go hang out with him, and we would start talking, and he would talk about the end of the world, and he just seemed really fearful about that, and he tried to explain it to me, and I just thought he was out of his mind, and I just kind of really thought to myself that he was going through a phase, and I just hoped that it would pass. But I was really having doubts, second thoughts about marrying him. So I didn't realize at this time that he was praying for me, and I've since found out that my friends from high school knew that I was an atheist, and since I've got back in touch with some of them, they've told me that they have been praying for me for years, because one of them told me he wasn't sure I was going to make it, because I was kind of, I was a total pothead. I was involved in some pretty bad things, so they were really worried about me, and they knew I didn't have Jesus in my life, and they were praying for me. So I didn't find out about that until later, and I think I'm going to stop there and refer you to the second part. I'm going to make this a 2-part series, so stick around.